Welcome, everyone. I am John Ryan for SportsMemo.com, and you have joined the NBA Triple Double Show. And I'm joined by my regular co-host. I'm trying to come up with different words to describe, so I'm not repeating the same thing every day. But what else can you do? You know, it's like repeating winners over the course of a week. It's kind of rinse, repeat. But I have Ronald Cabang in the house if you're a first-time listener, and we appreciate you watching this show. And we're going to update you on the two shows we did previous. So if you haven't seen those shows, I highly recommend you get over there. We provided at least 25 trends, angles, systems that apply to game one and also the entire series. What happens after game one is won by the home team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we think we have the roadmap in place where this series probably goes 6 games, I think is probably the most likely scenario with I believe we both agreed, Ronald, 4-2 Warriors take down the Larry O'Brien Trophy. Any new news that you've uncovered between yesterday and today yet?
Well, one thing is Gary Payton is going to be active for the series, but from what I saw, they said they don't plan to have him in the game script for today's game yet. I think it probably just need a little bit more time, but I think if they see that they need his help moving forward in game two and moving forward, that's probably something that will be added to the Golden State arsenal here as a key defender to put pressure off Curry to have to guard guys like Smart or even on the pick and roll. So he's going to be pretty helpful there from the defensive aspect of it. Other than that, a lot of the same trends that we were looking at the last couple of days have really remained the same here. A lot of the things are pointing towards the Celtics. You know, when it comes to this time of the year in the NBA Finals, we can see support on both sides of it. For me, just majority of the signs are pointing towards the Warriors here for game one. I haven't done a series bet or anything like that. I think for me, I'm just going to stick with one game at a time here and focus on, the lineups that we see every game, because the current health status of all these players, including some key players, are real questionable. I think Robert Williams is one guy that comes to my mind as someone that I want to keep my eye on as far as health.
Yeah. I'm looking at some game props, and if you don't have an opinion on it, then you don't have an opinion on it, and that's fine. But if you're leaning Warriors, if you're a viewer out there in TV land and you're leaning on the Warriors in game one here, there's all kinds of prop bets for winning margin. Mm-hmm. And the one that sticks out to me, Ronald, is the Warriors win by 11 to 15 points. And my thinking is that if they cover the 3.5, and I think that line will be at 4 by game time. So if you do like the Warriors and you want to do the spread, I would recommend it now, not waiting. The same thing with the money line. But 11 to 15 point margin is plus 625. So would it make sense to do like 90% of your bet on the Warriors minus the 3.5, and then 10% of your normal bet size, Warriors 11 to 15 margin of victory at plus 625?
I mean, if you're cutting out the percentage at that rate, I think it makes sense. If it's just a 10% and it's at what would you say 10 plus
625?
Plus 625. That's not a bad. That's not a bad. That's not a bad pizza bet there, because if we're looking at the two game ones in the current year of the playoffs, they won both by double digits, including game one by 16, and against the Nuggets, and then against the Mavericks, I think that's close to 30 points right there, 25 points. So I mean, they've come into these series with the extra rest and with a game plan, and they execute it. It looks like, especially so far this season. If we look back into how they've done in game ones as home favorites, as single digit favorites, 10-1 straight up, 9-2 against the spread with an average margin around 14. So it makes sense to me that they could win this one by double digits if they do win.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I was on the First Family show today. Joe D'Amico mentioned that he either spoke to the sports directors himself, or it was through a really good source. Nevertheless, that the smart money earlier in the week went on the Celtics, and you do see that in the betting markets right now. 76% of the tickets, 76% of the money right now has been on the Warriors, but the line is struggling to get to 4 after opening at 3.5. If you like the Celtics, the same bet, the shocker here, where I would just shake my head like this and say, the Sharps are right on this one, would be if the Celtics won by 11 to 15 points. And as I mentioned, the Warriors are plus 625. But if you like the Celtics to win game one, 11 to 15 margin of victory is plus 1,050. So that's 10.5 to 1. That would be an excellent pizza bet if you like the Celtics and you like them a lot, obviously, to be a shocker in game one, which I think that would be.
Yeah, I mean the line is tight for a reason, right? Because these are two evenly matched teams. I think, in my opinion, though, the Celtics have failed to cover in every single game one in these playoffs so far. And I know they've done well on the road. They've done well on the road so far this season altogether. But specifically on game ones, they've struggled to cover the spread. They beat the Nets, but I believe they only won by like a point or two, if I'm not mistaken. They didn't cover the spread. I might need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case here. So yeah, they've done all throughout these playoffs. They've done well on the road, but in game one specifically, it's been a struggle for them to manage that. So, like I said, signs to me are pointing towards the Warriors.
Yeah, and lastly, in the game props, I see something we've talked about. What it's been months, and the underdog leading at the half on the road, especially in the playoffs, the favorite gets their act together and comes back, and plays very intense, focused game, and they end up winning. So Boston Celtics leading at the end of the first half, and Golden State winning is plus 500, 5 to 1. You think that's a better bet for a guy like me that will bet the Warriors if they're trailing at the half with the live in-game line, which I could be at -1, -1.5 if Boston's winning for the full game, or is it better to nibble at this at plus 500 or 5 to 1?
Yeah, I think that second half, I think you mentioned that second half or even the third quarter. If we look back at how Boston came out of that third quarter in game one versus the Heat, I believe they got outscored by 25 in that third quarter. So it is that situation where, but we could see Boston come in here early. I know they, Golden State has that extra rest, right? But sometimes that could backfire, especially for a jump shooting team. They're going to need to get some time or to get into some type of rhythm here, where Celtics rely on their defense for their offense at times, and I could see that happening. I think the Celtics, they probably have an opportunity to even lead at halftime, but with the extra rest and just the overall how they do in the second half of games, that and make adjustments at halftime. I think that's something that we would probably see benefit the Warriors a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely I will definitely bet the Warriors if they are trailing at the half. I will also do additional pizza money bets for what it's worth on the 5 to 1. And also, if they're tied and the Warriors win, I got to include that, right? I can't miss out on that because it's 20 to 1.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the odds of them being tied at the half is probably 80 to 1. But that's the way the markets work. You're not going to get the true probabilities of these prop bets because that's why they're prop bets. The book has to make money too, and they make a ton of it, or they wouldn't offer 200 prop bets for one game.
Yeah.
So with that said, you have to be pretty careful. Chat room here is getting pretty lively here. JB Brown, not sure why y'all feel this is going to be so easy for the Warriors. Well, it's kind of what we're talking about. JB Brown, 76th of the world on the home team here. Fact of the matter is, the team in game one is 17-2 straight up and 16-3 against the spread the last 19 seasons. It does have a strong P value that we talk about, which means that's the correlation of those parameters. So it is realistic that trend can continue, but it still makes you go, oh man, I certainly don't want to be the 3 of that 17-2 trend by taking the Warriors.
Yeah, I
But
don't think we're saying that it's going to be easy. I think these two teams are very evenly matched. It's just the fact that situationally, game one, because we're only talking about game one. I'm not talking about the series at this point, but game one, situationally, the Warriors have the advantage here, based on historic trends.
this is interesting too, JB Brown. The Carolina Capper says Celtics plus 1.5 games minus 170. That means that for that to lose, we'd have to be more of our lean that the series ends 4-2 Warriors. Again, that's a popular choice. I don't know if it's 76% or 50%, but I think there's more people that would say the Warriors are going to win this series than not.
Yeah,
But that's an intriguing bet too. I don't like playing the minus 170.
yeah. It's either
Um,
the Celtics win the series or we go to game seven,
right.
right?
Yep.
That would be the
Those are
case.
the
Yeah.
two scenarios, right? You can't be 4-2, obviously, or
Mhm.
yeah, it has to go. That means it has to go 7. And not too many have gone 7, Ronald, as you have said. What's the percentage?
25.3 in 75 NBA finals. So
And that's the whole
25.3% of
universe
the
of
time.
NBA
Yeah.
Finals. So that's pretty
Yeah.
stout.
Yeah.
Um, Mitch Armstrong is here. See what he has to say. Welcome, Mitch. Boston first half plus 128. It's only that much? I would think
Yeah, it's
it would
only
be
I believe
more.
it's only I have it up right now. Shoot, he has 128. Mine says 120.
Wow.
Plus 120. Warriors at minus 150.
And this is a variation of what we were talking about with my if Boston's leading at the half, I'm
Hmm.
betting Golden State. So
I'm not
yeah,
I'm not I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that could happen. I think Golden State is notorious for starting slow too. So nothing. I mean, I could see Boston leading at half, but I could also see the Golden State Warriors coming out of the gate at halftime, pretty strongly as well.
yeah, that's a very good strategy there, Mitch. I think for what it's worth. I want to look at a couple of the prop bets we mentioned yesterday, but these are going to be for the in-game first, and then we'll bring up the MVP to see if there's any changes. Especially the Marcus Smart one. I can't get that out of my head. I mentioned that too on the first family show today. And, at 40-1, I still shake my head like this, Ron. Whenever I do that, I'm having trouble getting my hands around the fact that the defensive player of the year is 40-1. And in
Mhm.
order for his team to win, you would think that, I mean, if they win, the outcome has to be 90% because they play just lights out defense. And that's fast becoming my it's almost like a hedge against the series because if
Mhm.
Boston wins, you got to think he's going to be mentioned as a possible MVP unless Tatum just scores 40 a game, which I don't think he's going to do against this Warriors team because, as you mentioned yesterday, Iguodala is starting tonight, right? Or he's coming off the bench.
Is it? I don't know. I don't think I said that. I don't know what Iguodala's status is. From what I've seen, it's still a game time decision.
Okay.
Questionable. Yeah. But I do think that the Golden State Warriors defense is probably being really underrated at the current moment, just because you're comparing it
Yep.
to the number one defense. I mean, the Golden State ended the season second in defensive rating, and that had to do you had almost a 2 month span where Draymond Green wasn't even playing, and he's arguably one of their
Yep.
key defenders there. And then Payne, he didn't really play a full season either, right? So I mean, a lot of the key defenders that we're talking about on the Golden State Warriors didn't play all season long. You can say the same thing with Boston, but they turned it up a notch after the trade deadline. Golden State was consistent throughout the year with guys coming off of the bench, and a lot of the starters not playing solid minutes. So I think Golden State really their defense has been severely underrated in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And we're getting a question about rest, and I'm going to pull up that piece of info about rest that we talked about yesterday, just to reiterate it. Just give me 1 second here, scrolling through all this data here. Of rest. So it is true. Yeah, the Celtics have 3 days of rest, but the Warriors have 6. And there's been 4 teams in the last 19 seasons that have had 6 days rest. They all have gone on to win the World Championship. One of those was against the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James, who had 7 days of rest. But still, the Warriors had 6, and they took care of business and beat them. I think it was 4-1 in that series, wasn't it, Ronald? It was pretty convincing.
Yeah. For which game? Which series?
2017. The Warriors won, I think, 4-1 over Cleveland, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the year it was. Yeah.
Yep. So that there points to the Warriors too. And they have there's a stat here that is really, I think it's 14-1 straight up, and 13-2 against the spread, as with 6 or more days. I'm sorry, with more rest than the opponent and not more than a 7-point favorite in game 1 specifically. And I can't bet against these Warriors in game 1. And sure as hell, won't Boston win by double digits tonight?
Yeah, it's a tale of two trends. I mean, like you think about how the Warriors have done at home and how the Celtics have done on the road. So sometimes those things become a wash, and you have to look at different angles to point you towards a specific direction. On that note, with Jake the Degenerate saying that the Celtics should be favored, I think the way the line is right now, with them being at home as 3.5-point favorites, I think it's very close to a pick 'em, in my opinion, as far as if it was at a neutral situation, right? I think the reason why they're giving a little bit of advantage towards the Warriors is because of the extra rest and also traveling from East Coast to West Coast. I think there's that little half point or a point that gives the Golden State Warriors that advantage there. But in a neutral court, I think the line is saying that this matchup is extremely evenly matched. And I totally agree with it. I mean, this one's probably one of the hardest NBA finals to cap in a long time.
I just came up with a question on the fly, and I'm going to put both of us on the spot. Let's say we're playing street ball and we're picking teams. And you flip a coin with me. In other words, I'm the captain of the one team, you're the captain of the other. You flip a coin, and it gives you the first pick of all the players that are starting and coming off the bench in this game. For this final. Who's your number 1 pick?
Curry.
I would agree. And he's minus 110 still to be the MVP. Now, if you
it's come down too. It's come down from minus 145 yesterday to minus 110 today.
Which I think is the reflection of Jason Tatum. But my pick would be, actually, I would take Klay Thompson with my number 1 pick. So let's go through the top 5 here just to see what our teams would be.
Wait. So we're doing like a draft. So Curry's gone. Yeah. Now you want to take? Yeah. Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, okay.
Right on the fly here. I figured it'd be a little fun.
Yeah, I would take Tatum next. There's like a little fantasy draft going on here.
And I'll take Jaylen Brown.
All right. Well, then I would take Robert Williams.
Who is that again?
Robert Williams.
Okay. Wow. I'm gonna take Wiggins.
I'll take Smart.
Draymond.
So I have Smart. I have Curry. Robert Williams. Oh, I need a big wing. Let's say. Oh man. Okay. So I got Smart, Curry, Robert Williams. Could you have Thompson? Brown. Oh, I got Tatum too. Oh yeah, I'm good. So I would take Horford here.
Good. That's a good pick.
Yeah.
I have Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Jaylen Brown, and Draymond Green. So then my 5th is going to be Jordan Poole or Kevin Looney. So I guess the value would be in Jordan Poole to have a huge series. He's playing pretty darn well.
I would say Jordan Poole. Yeah. If you mix these, man, you can go anyway with I was talking about yesterday. I have to go in a little bit, John, but I was saying yesterday that even though Looney starts, Jordan Poole is sort of that guy that could technically be like a starter, considered a starter as well, especially with his role in that death lineup that the Golden State Warriors have. They call it the death lineup, so that's what I'm calling it. But yeah, so I think Jordan Poole could play very, especially with how Boston plays and the players that they have on the court. They so far what I've seen is they're going to play their starters heavy minutes. They're not going to rely on their bench pretty much at all. I think they're a 8 to 8, maybe like a 8-man rotation. And I think I could see Golden State Warriors going about 9 deep. So there's a little bit of advantage there if we're giving rest and depth towards the Warriors. I think Kerr has more trust in his bench than Udoka does with his.
Yeah. Rob Vino never looked at a trend in his life. He is purely a 100% fundamental guy. He does,
Yeah, he said that.
I would call it flash trends. A pitcher is not doing well against left-handed batters, for example, or something like that. But he's absolutely right. But
yeah, I brought Rob Bino on for that specific reason, because I knew he does things differently than others that I know, specifically you and myself and a few others. And the point of that show was to say that there are many ways to win. You don't have to bet or strategize or have a specific system and think that that's the only way that you can win, because other people are successful at this and doing it in different ways. So just have that in mind, that just because someone else thinks of it in a different way doesn't mean that they're not successful.
Yeah, and he was Wager Talk's #1 rated NBA handicapper last year.
He was number one.
But it was back-to-back years.
He was #1 2 years in a row, and you think about that. He's a fundamental bettor. I was #1 last year, I think, and I believe you're #1 this year, and we're both not 100% fundamental bettors. That's just telling you right there that we can win no matter what. Like there's different ways to win. I'm just when it comes down to this, and there's only two teams that we can look at. People are going to have different opinions, and this is when it becomes cutthroat, because people take every single word that you say very, very sometimes personally, and that's not the way that I look as a bettor. I don't have any skin in this game. The Sonics are gone, so I'm not a fan of either team here. But I gotta get going.
Okay,
John.
Lastly, for Jake the Degenerate, I would say just let it ride. Just like the movie, let it ride. It's $200, and I've always, when I hedge, it always causes more trouble than it's worth. I would just let it ride at this point and see what happens. Yeah. So Ronald, I know you have to get over to your next show, I think with Jay Money. So good luck with that. I'll be tuning in, and we'll see you guys tomorrow with the results of Game 1 tonight. Remember tonight, especially tonight, with your head not over it, and may all the wins be yours tonight and every night. Thanks for watching.